أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا بالجنة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون. نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم ولكم فيها ما تدعون نزلا من غفور رحيم. ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين. ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم وما يلقاها إلا الذين صبروا وما يلقاها إلا ذو حظ عظيم وإما ينزغنك من الشيطان نزغ فاستعذ وإما ينزغنك من الشيطان نزغ فاستعذ بالله إنه هو السميع العليم صدق الله العظيم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The current issue is that it is in the Muslim world, it is not everybody is aware of what's going on in the Muslim world. And as ISW and the whole Muslim community in the United States and the world, we are aware, we are suffering as well as others from the misconceptions that we have. And today, inshallah, we are trying to shed some light and on the from Islamic perspective, what is our stand as Muslims, inshallah. So I'm inviting the speakers, alhamdulillah, that they came on very, very short notice, that the program was actually decided on Tuesday, and alhamdulillah, everybody collaborated. We have with us, alhamdulillah, Dr. Faisal Dean, the chairman of the Council of Islamic Organizations. We have Sheikh Ahmed Khan, business scholar from the Islamic Center of Sweden. We have Maulana Ubaidullah Salim from IIE, and we have Sheikh Rizwan Ali as well from ICN, and our brother Mohamed Saeed from the Beach Attorneys. So without further ado, Professor Dean.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Kareem. Dear brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum. I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to be with you. I congratulate you all and the Islamic Center of Beacon, Bolingbrook and ICN for hurriedly putting this together, which is it's needed for the community. There are lots of questions that people have in their mind, and this is a good opportunity to listen from the scholars and the attorney. And I'm going to give you a little brief introduction as to what are the circumstances that have caused these young men to get into this difficult situation that they have gotten into. And you know that last week Muhammad Hamza Khan was arrested at the O'Hare airport, allegedly that he was trying to travel to Syria with the intention of joining ISIS, ISIL, whatever you want to call that group. So there are many questions unanswered in that thing. And there were two other cases that happened about 2 years ago. One was Adil Dawood, also from the western suburbs here, was arrested as allegedly again, he was trying to blow up a bar in the Chicago area with a car full of explosives. And then another case of Ahmed Tunisi, Abdullah Ahmed Tunisi, he was arrested also 2 years ago, as allegedly he was trying to travel to Syria to join Jabhat al-Nusra for fighting in Syria. So we just want to take a brief look at what they were trying to do and why they got into trouble. With Adil Dawood, I have a report from the Tribune in front of me, and I'm going to read from the report because I'm sure maybe it's still, especially in the western suburbs, you know what happened. Maybe it's still fresh in your memory, but it's important to know, refresh your minds anyway. A hillside teenager has been charged with trying to detonate a car bomb outside a bar in downtown Chicago, following months of surveillance in which he boasted to undercover federal agents of ignoring reprimands from a mosque leader against plans of terrorism, the U.S. Attorney's Office announced. So this brother, Adil Dawood, he was warned by a mosque leader already against doing any such thing. And he was boasting the FBI informants that he's doing that. And he's still determined to go where he wants to go. And of course, he was not going anywhere. He was trying to detonate a bomb to kill people. And he allegedly told the FBI agent that he really wants to kill a lot of people to make big news. And he was motivated, again I'm reading here, he was motivated to target US citizens because of what he perceived as American abuses overseas and because he believed the US is at war with Islam and Muslims. Yes, so, as far as Adil Dawood is concerned, again, this is an allegation. I have to keep saying that this is an allegation, that he was trying to detonate something right here in Chicago to kill people. So domestic terrorism is against him. What we also need to understand is that the mosque leaders actually tried to stop him, and he did not listen to them. So when some people charge the Muslim community of neglect and not trying to teach our youth and our troubled youth particularly that they should follow the right path and leave the path of wrong thoughts about terrorism and so on and so forth. And this is not brought out in the media as much as it should be. And there is a description in here also that when he went to the Imam, and according to him, the Imam yelled at him. That's his perception, of course. We don't really think that he was yelled at. But that was the perception that he got. The other youth from our community, Abdullah Ahmed Tunisi, he was troubled by the war in Syria. Who was not troubled by the war in Syria, right? So he wanted to join the opposition to the Syrian government, Bashar al-Assad, so that the war can be stopped and the atrocities that he was committing can be stopped. What is the American government interest in stopping him? That's what we all need to understand. The American government's interest in stopping him is that the American government has declared Jabhat al-Nusra as a terrorist organization, a part of Al-Qaeda. And the concern here is that people will join there and then will come back and bring those thoughts of destruction and killing and all that here, and they may commit the similar acts like here in America. That is their concern. So in Ahmed Tunisi's case, we may understand that his motivation was the right motivation, that wanted to help the people of Syria who were being persecuted by Bashar al-Assad. And he had no intentions of causing any harm here in America. All that is clear. Still does not matter. He should have known, or somebody should have told him, that Jabhat al-Nusra is declared terrorist organization by the American government. So any attempt to work with them or help them or anything is considered a crime. There's no doubt about it. Why go to Jabhat al-Nusra? Hamas is designated as a terrorist organization. If any one of the Muslims here is caught as sending money to Hamas, they will be in trouble. So this is the official rule. No matter what you believe, this is the official rule, that you need to be aware of what organizations have been designated by the American government as the terrorist organizations, and you need to make sure that you're not providing any kind of support. Material support, financial support, or physical support, none of those can be allowed. Speaking out is not a crime. Still, open, speaking about it is fine. And so, what's happening here in both cases, and in cases of Hamza Khan also, is that they go to these websites where the organizations like ISIL or Al-Qaeda, they have set up websites. They go to those websites and try to see what's going on, and maybe even post some messages. FBI is looking at those websites as to who is accessing those websites. Once they know that some people are accessing those websites, or even posting some comments on it, support, expression of support or anything, FBI immediately puts an informer behind those people to track them, not only track them, but facilitate them. Like, for example, in case of Adil Dawood, an FBI informant provided a jeep with fake explosives to catch Adil Dawood red-handedly when he was actually flipping the switch to detonate the bomb. This is the fact. We talked to FBI and they said that yes, this is what they do. They do not tell them to do it. They ask again and again, are you sure you really want to do it? When the people say that yes, they're sure they really want to do it, then they facilitate them committing this act. We need to be very careful about this, and also we need to be very sure that when some of these mentality of youth is detected, we need to get professional help to talk to them, whatever, in order to dissuade them from these terrorist activities. Otherwise, they get into big trouble. These people are in there for 20, 25 years. They're facing that much jail time. And of course, families are affected, communities are affected. It's a big, big deal that we need to stop these things from happening to them.
I'm sure that the time was just like went very fast for 10 minutes. It was very quickly, and I'm sure that I felt there because we kind of short attention. So it's the time now that we're giving 5 minutes for questions and answers. So we know that Professor Dean is representing the Council for Islamic Organization here in the Greater Chicago. So it's either you come to the mic and post your question, or Professor Ali here has cards as well that it is you can as well as cards. So if anybody has a question to Professor Dean. Actually, I have a question that is, I was expecting Professor Dean to talk a little bit about the efforts that the Council is doing for these issues.
As I said, I commend the ICW for and Bolingbrook and ICN for organizing this thing. And the Council of Islamic Organizations is also organizing some seminars with people from disciplines of Islamic studies. Obviously, they're a scholar, a psychologist who can talk about youth mentalities, especially in the ages of 17, 18 years of age, how they should be talked to and what are they thinking, what affects them, what influences them, and so on. And an attorney to describe the legal rights, and an educator if the students are in schools. Parents, of course, the most important thing is the internet security. The parents need to know what the youth are doing and what website they're going to, because that's most of these people have gotten into trouble by visiting the wrong websites and posting comments on those wrong websites. So we will have somebody talk about the internet security as well.
Any update on brother Tunisi?
There have been no recent updates on Tunisi. He's also in detention. Adil Dawood was supposed to have gone to trial this year, but it's been postponed till next year. So these people are not going to be sent home on bail. They are going to be held. They have already suffered for 2 years in jail, and the atmosphere is so bad that even you get the best attorney, the chances of winning a case are very small. So we need to be very, very careful about these things.
Assalamu alaikum. Given those Islamic organizations within the United States, have we as Muslims made public statement nationwide to express our condemnation for ISIS and what they're doing?
Yes. Most definitely, the Islamic Council of North America, Islamic Society of North America, they drafted a letter to al-Baghdadi advising him that what he is, path is not the path of Islam, and to persuade him to denounce what he was doing, and of course condemning that. So that was was issued, and Council of Islamic Organizations also endorsed that letter, and Sheikh bin Bayyah has also issued a fatwa against ISIL, and we've endorsed that also. When James Foley was killed in August, Council of Islamic Organizations issued a press release denouncing that indiscriminate killing as well. Muslim organizations going to educational institutions regarding awareness of Islam, public schools, universities. Yes, alhamdulillah, we just hired a youth director at the Council of Islamic Organizations. Jihad Ali is her name, Jihad is the name. But she's supposed with it. So, and she has already made connections with all the Islamic school principals and met with them and is organizing seminars at all of the Islamic schools. She has also made connections with Muslim chaplains at Northwestern University, DePaul, Loyola, and University of Chicago. And she'll be meeting with them to see how some seminars can be organized in MSAs as well. So public schools will be covered through Masajid, Sunday school. You know, the public school, I don't know how to get out to public schools, but most of them come to our Sunday school. We can at least cover them through Sunday schools.
Just comment about that, addressing the youth. Actually, ICW and ICN and other masajid here in the West Coast, Bolingbrook as well, and Masjid al-Huda, we agreed to have, inshallah, that it is a special program for the youth. We're planning, inshallah, to have it with some of the young speakers that will take place either in auditorium of college to age or within the university, inshallah, with the organization of different MSA, different high schools, inshallah. So this program, inshallah, is coming, but we are still in the process of preparing for it, inshallah. And now we're going to ask Maulana Ubaidullah Salim, Humayyi, to give inshallah 10 minutes on the dot.
الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد نعلم أنك يضيق صدرك بما يقولون فسبح بحمد ربك وكن من الساجدين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. For over 2 decades, we know that Middle East have been the volatile area. There are so many incidents, they are unfolding one after the other. So many people who born like after early 90, they just found it like normal. You open the newspaper, or you turn the TV on and you find news like explosions, 200, 300 people died here. It's like so normal, like college football, here and there. It has to be that way. So normal. No one even mourns, no one even pays attention to that. The news comes, painful news comes from there so regularly. But people who are maybe more older than 20 years, 30, 40, 50, they know that this area wasn't like that all the time. Before there was peace, and so they are rightful to expect the peace in that area and look for that. But I'm just saying, feel sorry for so many people who are young, under 18 or 16, like the person that Dr. Saab just mentioned. He grew up knowing that this area, there cannot be peace. So anyway, we need to know that the deen, our deen, Islam, is a universal religion. Yes, it did grow and spread from that area which we call today the Middle East, and in the heart of that is Al-Arabiya. But at one time, it became the religion of every continent. And the case today is that every 5th person walking on the planet anywhere, he is Muslim. Thus, Islam is as much as in the Middle East, is as much in India, as much as in Nepal, as much as in Africa and in America. We need to see that the problem our young people are facing over here, or even everybody, not even younger people, but everybody at work, at school, everywhere, trying to cover up their identity, trying to not show their names and their Islamic identity, not to be known as Muslim, because they're living under constant fear that they will look down, they're not given that respect just because they are Muslims. Many people may be living with this kind of depression, this kind of fear and worry. So just because something happening far somewhere in the world, so people are constantly judging us in the shadow of the event that's unfolding far, thousands of miles away from us. So is this happening everywhere in the world where Muslims live as minority, or is it happening specifically in some places like in America? I lived a long time in India, so I can share with you, and I also lived here, can share with you if the situation is same. everywhere where Muslims live as minority or is different? In my understanding, I lived there a long time. In my understanding, situation is different there. If anything happens in the Middle East, whether right or wrong, in the understanding of larger community, right? They do not relate it to the locals. Or if anything locals do, or they try to explain any of Islamic's ideology, principle, or anything, they do not try to run for that to Islamic institutions in the Middle East to get the confirmation from there. That, like, Indian government does not give the confirmation whether the interest is permissible in Islam or not. They don't get the confirmation for that from Makkah Mukarramah, let's say, or from Al-Azhar Sharif, or anywhere else. But whatever the religious authority says in India, they know that they represent the Islam, their own religion, because this deen is universal deen. So it makes it a little bit easier for the people in India, Muslims in India, that they are responsible for all their actions. If they are not right, they can work for that, they can adjust and fix. And if they're doing something right, then they can be appreciated, and they are appreciated. But here, I think the case is a little bit different. So it's a big challenge for our youth, because they know that it is not in our control, the things that are happening overseas. No doubt that we are so much connected to that area for various reasons. Number one, so many our Muslims, brothers and sisters live there, and Islam started from there, and it is the land of of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I would say the entire that region. So if anything happens there, I don't mean the Arabia, but all this area, then yes, it does hurt us, and we can't ignore that. It does hurt. But the people who live here, the larger community, they should not judge us in the shadow of the events that's happening anywhere in the world. So the next question is: if this is happening only here and not many other places in the world, like India, for example, then the question is: will this situation continue here, or is it going to change? I think this situation will change because we see the community growth here. If you see 10 years, 15 years back, the community was not that huge. The institutional presence was like next to zero. But now there is institutional presence and community presence. So the community is growing bigger and bigger. And alhamdulillah, there are now Islamic giants that we can point to. There are Islamic institutions that we can point to. And they are representing our deen, our faith. So it is a matter of time that people will not judge us, will not see us in that way that are doing now. And so it will be easier for our community here to put full focus on themselves and making sure that we are living to the tenets of the deen, to the aqidah of the deen, to the practice of the deen. In general, this difficulties that we're going through right now is not new. It's as old as the Islam itself. During the time of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the trials that he went through and the followers who were with him, the trials that they went through, I think we're not even through 1/10 of that, right? And we cannot claim, and we never claim that we are better than them. So if the best of the mankind and the ashab of the best of mankind, they went through so much emotional, psychological stress, right? And they faced it with sabr, with istiqamah, then why should we wait for a day when we will live without this kind of stress, with this kind of pressure? I was just thinking while I was coming here that Imam Nawawi rahmatullahi, everybody knows Imam Nawawi rahmatullahi, who did not live very long life, but his contribution is bigger than an entire community of scholars give to us, right? When he lived his life in Syria, right, in Iraq, what was happening? Tatar was there, and the human loss was as much as in the last decade here in Iraq, about 1 million people. So, the stress you could see on young people could be so much that could completely deviate them from doing anything worthy for them, for their families, and for the community. At this time, Imam Nawawi found for him a place where a field where he can engage himself, and so he engaged himself in constantly learning the deen, mastering the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then contributing it to the ummah. And thus we saw so many books that cannot even fit on one table, one shelf. Alhamdulillah. So today we need to remind ourselves that if we see the stress is going to the limit that we cannot take it, it's time that we turn more to the figure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The salah, the tasbih, as I recited from Surah Hijr, and also in Surah Muzammil said, فَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ. Or here, that وَلَقَدْ نَعْلَمُ أَنَّكَ يَضِيقُ صَدْرُكَ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ. We know that your heart is constrained, or the ill speech that they pass to you about Allah, about Rasulullah, about Islam, about your cultural deen. We know that. فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَكُنْ مِنَ السَّاجِدِينَ وَاعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيكَ الْيَقِينُ. جزاكم الله خيرا.
Question for Maulana Ubaidullah.
MashaAllah, to excuse me, excellent presentations. We all know that perception is stronger than reality. If we are perceived in this country as being complacent in stopping the menace of having to talk about or deal with ISIS, as the word speaker mentioned, the question is how much of television exposure we have to the denunciation of these terrorist organizations by our leaders, religious, political, other leaders. I think that probably is the missing link, because television and other media are excellent in changing the public opinion. And I think we as Muslims, we lack that tremendously. And I think that may be a missing link. Thank you.
So that's more as a comment. Okay. I have a personal question to right. Personally, as well, I have a question to Maulana Ubaidullah. That it is, subhanAllah, that one of the sages saying that it is 3 instances that is allegedly being charged, as you mentioned, that is all just like have been half of the Quran. So how can we just like explain this? What is the reason behind it? That is, if we can just draw some conclusions, and what it is after what that it is we are going to address the youth studying there.
one thing is obvious to see that these are very young people, very tender age. We're not even sure, as Dr. Saab said, it's just the allegation. We do not even know that this particular individual, what really was up to, what he's held for. We're not even sure for that. But one thing is obvious that they are in tender age, particularly the last person, the Hafiz Quran, 19 years of age. So we need to monitor our kids, just like we were monitoring before that they were mingled with they're spending a lot of time outside of the home. We need to spend more time. Now is a wake-up call for the parents that we find for them more time, more engagement in the house, so we know what's happening in their minds, so we can guide them, we can protect them against these kind of situations before, because a person cannot take this extreme step all of a sudden. He must have gone, and thought about it for long and long and long. So if the parents who are closest to the children, if they are aware of that, they can tackle that problem, can handle that problem, inshallah. So the responsibility goes to parents more than anyone else, inshallah. Well, in India, since I brought that up in my talk, how many Muslims live there? Approximately 400 million Muslims live there. So second largest minority in the world. Do you think that the situation is there so beautiful, like there is no institution, there are different views and ideologies about different things? Of course, there are so many different thoughts and different schools for 400 million people. So you can imagine. So within the community, all those things are there, which are here. And that's normal. There's nothing to worry about or to scare. It doesn't show the friction. It doesn't show that we are divided. It doesn't show. We are a thriving community in America as we are in India. So every two people will have two different opinions. So it's there. So here, there's the same situation as in India. Second thing is, yes, you yourself brought it up and you showed that it's not a very good idea to learn about Islam over the internet. The best idea, best thing is that we go to the teachers, to the scholars, our own masjid. Actually, a person who doesn't know, if he goes to too much information which is available on the internet, I would not get anything but get confused. But if I go to one teacher at one time, then my understanding could be solidified, and I can digest it, I can get a lesson from this. But if I'm just, clicking and switching from this side to that side, I'm only getting confused. On top of that, there are so many other issues that a person cannot go with a good intention to the internet and come out with good intention. Because there's too much else going on there. So the book is the right thing that we make ourselves in habit of reading and learning the deen from there, and the teacher who teaches from. This is the traditional way. This is how we should increase for our children and make them in habit of learning and inquiring about Islam through book and through the teacher. I think that's
Dr. Faisal Deen asked for a short comment.
Yeah, one quick response. As you read from reports, none of these three people quoted any Quranic ayah or a hadith as a justification for what they are doing. So it's only in the media they say that Islam is making them do it. What they were concerned about is killing of Muslims in overseas and our support of killing those Muslims. That was the motivation. And of course, it's a noble motivation, but they need to know that they need to respond to those concerns in a way that Islam teaches them to respond. So do not be under the impression that these people were motivated by any Quranic verse or anything. They were motivated by atrocities committed against Muslims and they wanted to do something. Unfortunately, they chose the wrong path.
So now I give the mic to Sheikh Rahman Khan, and I want to give some introduction. I think it would be, inshallah, 10 minutes.
Maybe less, so that they make up for some of the time.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد. My dear beloved brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And I must say, Alhamdulillah, we finally are facing the community sadly on these issues. I think if we had done this perhaps 10 years ago, Allah knows best that we could have instilled in the community open issues. Too often we kept behind doors, behind walls, pushing issues aside. And I'm so happy that ourselves, Bolingbrook and CIOGC, maybe this is how we are in future, charter our path, how we deal with our youths and extreme thoughts and extreme ideas. I would like to discuss a few theological issues here. And the question about killing itself. The picture that has been painted about Islam, unfortunately, from the 10th and 11th century, is that this religion is a religion of killing. And so the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ has been depicted and distorted that Islam has been spread by the sword. And this is now, has since then, we're talking about 1,000 years being fueled into the narrative of the whole world that Muslims are barbaric, are very violent people, and the likes what we see in the ISIS or ISIL, whatever name, I still don't know what's the difference between the two, but it's the same group, that they are playing into very much that kind of narrative. And I would like to say categorically that that is not true. Islam has not been spread by the sword. Neither the Prophet ﷺ nor the companions were bloodthirsty for any reason or at any time. As a matter of fact, whenever Prophet ﷺ could have defended and averted and diverted from any war, he had done so at every single opportunity. There has not been a single opportunity. And the best case scenario were the cases of the Fathu Makkah, when he came back to the place and conquered the very people that slaughtered them, that fought them several battles, and he has now returned back as victory over them, or victor over them, that he never put any one of them to trial and say, you're going to be killed or we're going to kill you here today. As a matter of fact, from them, from the Jewish tribe, from all the other people that he had tried to make peace with, even in a state of animosity, simply because Prophet ﷺ and Islam came to save humanity, not to destroy humanity. So war is not an option. Killing is not something that we come to see as good or normal. Quran itself, in one of what we call our 10 commandments in Surah Al-An'am towards the very end, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbids the killing of a soul that Allah has made haram, except for a reason, for a purpose. And those purposes are not for you and I, are not for the youth, even the masses to decide that it is those moments are to be going through the process of justice when somebody has done violence against society, against human being. And that is a law that is standard in every country, every society of the world. And so we understand that from our deen, killing is not something that we should try to inculcate. As a matter of fact, it is one of the signs of Qiyamah, where the Prophet ﷺ says that there will be kasratul haraj, there will be excessive killing. to such an extent that the qatil does not know why he is killing, the one who is killing does not know why he is killing, and the one who is being killed, he does not know why he is being killed. And this is the reality in which we are in today. Everywhere you turn, every news is all about killing. And who is killing who, for what purpose they are killing, and who is going to join that killing, for what purpose they are going for. SubhanAllah, this is the prediction of the Prophet ﷺ that among the last days, this is what's going to be the reality. And so we have to step back and get out of that scenario where we see just killing for the sake of killing. And so now blowing up, killing, and feeling good about it, want large numbers, this is, subhanAllah, far from what Islam teaches us. Secondly, we know that from our faith tradition, from our deen itself, that we do not force anybody to convert to Islam. Islam is a religion that is open. The books are there for the over 14 centuries. Nothing is hidden. Not a single verse is hidden. Not a single explanation has been hidden. So if anybody thinks that they have the secret of that ayah, and that secret means so, then we throw the whole 1400 years of scholarship aside and come up with these new extreme ideas. And so I want to warn our youth that these kind of interpretations that we are seeing today are not the traditional Islamic interpretation, the likes of which my dear brother Maulana Ubaidullah, he was mentioning. That we need youths, you need to get back to understanding this deen in its holistic way and not just thinking that, oh, maybe that group has the right understanding. Maybe they do have some sympathetic cause. But when it comes to applying the kind of extreme views, which brings me to my third point, that extremism is not something, again, that our community should encourage. We should not encourage any form of extremism. And the point that my dear beloved brother Talha made, that we also have to be careful. When the youths are coming up in a society open, in a world that is open, in an arena that is open, and people are hearing a view, a fiqhi position, and they are told that everybody else is wrong, then we have to step back and think, is this bringing us closer to address the issue of extremism when it is a fiqhi issue? We're not talking about aqidah issue here. We are talking about simple fiqhi issue and the fighting, internal fighting and strife that goes along with these sometimes extreme positions. And so I'm saying that our deen is open. Our deen takes in more than one opinion on fiqhi issues, on matters of application, and we see it from the time of the Sahaba. Those of you who have done comparative fiqh, you would have definitely come across many masail that Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, Aisha radiallahu anha, all of these had different views, but at the end of the day, they shared their views, they respected their views, and they went along in harmony in their society. Today, we don't have that, and I feel that I'm so happy that we are addressing these issues. Fiqhi issues must be known that there are ikhtilafat. The books of fiqh are so heavy that if we were to take out the ikhtilafat, maybe they will be like the size of this box here. If we were to put all the masail that they agreed on. But this is the beauty of Islam. And we have to encourage that beauty of tolerance. Because what that brings out, it brings out, I can tolerate your opinion. I can tolerate your viewpoint. I can see another way, even though I may not believe it. I may not follow it, but I understand where you're coming from. If I'm a Hanafi, then you will understand why am I not raising my hand for Rafa'adain. When I go for ruku, when I go for get up from ruku, why I'm not raising my hand. You will see I will shake my fingers. as opposed to a story that happened when a brother was shaking his finger. The next one broke his finger in salah because he felt that this was not supposed to happen. If we start do that in our everyday life, we are preparing a recipe for people to think very one-minded, and fiqh and Islam has a history of tolerance of other viewpoints. And I think these are the moments we need to bring that out. And I, as Imam Shafi said, رأيي سواء يحتمل الخطأ ورأي غيري خطأ يحتمل الصواب. One of the greatest scholars of this ummah, Imam Shafi rahimahullah, he said, my opinion is correct. That's why I have my opinion. But it's possible that I can be wrong with my opinion. This is on fiqhi matters. Again, I keep saying fiqhi matters because on matters of aqidah, we don't, that there is no ikhtilaf in the ummah about aqidah issues. And he said, perhaps the opinion of others are wrong. The opinion of others are wrong. But maybe they contain some amount of sawab, some amount of truth. And the only way we can do that is by dialogue, is by talking, is by open the forum, is by, and I'm sure if myself and Maulana Saab sitting right now, if we were to open any fiqhi discussion on salah, on wudu, on kayfiyatul salah, you will find two different opinions at the end of our discussion. But does that mean I belittle him or belittle him? Certainly not. I understand his background, his principles of which he said that, and he will understand my background and my principle. At the end of it, we pray salah, we say Allahu Akbar, we do qiyam, we do ruku, we do sujood, we do jalsa, and we do taslim, and none of us will deviate from that. So we need to understand that we have to open our thoughts on that. Extremism has been a long human problem. It is not a modern problem. It is not a problem with Islam alone. It is not a problem with modern day Muslims alone. It is not a problem with young Muslims in America alone. Extremism, wherever it is wrong, and whichever faith. We can go faith after faith after faith and find groups of extremist people. However, in our community, it is our responsibility as the religious leaders to make it very clear. And parents, you have your responsibility. I must stress, parents, you have your responsibility. What you can do, if we were to do that, we will be held as violating your freedom. If we were to hold your son and say, listen to me, do this, and by just touching him, he can say, you know what, I'm going to take this Maulana or this Sheikh down and say that they violated me. I cannot even do that. Even if you talk rough to them, very often you talk to children. And you know, at Islamic Foundation, we've had so many examples. You talk to children, and the parents become more offended, very offended. You know, and Dr. Saab, may Allah protect him. One day he was telling us, there are many stories, but this one story, just simple as that. A father was making wudu with his son. The son opened the tap to such an extent that water was flowing with so much like gallons upon gallons upon gallons of water. And so Dr. Saab just simply said to the child, if you lower the water pressure, this is how you should not waste. The father said to Dr. Saab right away, are you paying for this? SubhanAllah. So I am saying that parents also are equally or even more responsible in how they bring their children up, and when, as Dr. Qaisuruddin mentioned, when the scholars, religious people, none of us stand up and preach to any audience. I have not known any imam in Chicagoland area or elsewhere that will stand up and tell the people, oh, you who believe, oh, young people, go and fight and kill yourself and kill others. No imam will say that, no sheikh will say that. As a matter of fact, what they will do is to tell the community, this kind of mentality is extreme, it is wrong. So parents, you have to take your responsibility in that area. So in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was a companion who came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, "I'dil ya Rasulullah, you are not sharing this thing, this ghanima correctly. You need to to be just. Subhanallah, you are giving that clip. You feel you're so self-pious that even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has to come under your wrath of what you think is right. Subhanallah. And so the Prophet said, from his progeny will come people who make your salah will look inferior to them, your fasting will look inferior to them, but the Quran will not pass their throat, and they will go out of this deen like an arrow go out of the bow. It cannot return back. And this is the kind of things that we need to address when we see these things showing about ISIS, that we need to understand that this is not the religion that came with Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so that kind of mentality of extremism was given a name. They gave themselves a name, or they were given a name of Khawarij, that they became very extreme to the extent of their extremism led to the death of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala an, led to the death of Ali radiallahu ta'ala an, led to chaos in the Muslim Ummah in the early times, the likes of which we are seeing in today's time again. And so we need to understand that very often this extremism comes with weak knowledge of deen, and one needs to study Islam in its holistic way, not in piecemeal, take out ayah or take out the hadith and think this is what the deen is. Certainly not. And for you to understand that, it will take you years of learning for you to understand the holistic. We don't take out ayat and act upon them. Secondly, we see the lack of sabr. Yes, all of these things that are happening, some of you, our brothers and sisters sitting here are from those areas. Imagine how you feel when you go to bed. It hurts all of us, definitely. But there is a way, just like the story of Abu Jandal, which I mentioned last week in Bolingbroke, and I close off with that Abu Jandal was a companion who took Shahada. His father was Suhaib ibn Amr, who came to make peace with a treaty in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, and his father was representing the Kuffar of Quraysh. In that treaty, his father, Abu Jandal, appeared, and he wanted the Muslim to help him to come on their side. And his father said, no, you will have to return him. He has to return back to Makkah. And 1,400 Muslims on one side, 3 of the Kuffar of Quraysh on the other side. And yet the Prophet ﷺ, with all of that number, did not say, we are more than you, let's do this to you. They had sabr, and he made dua for them. I think at this point in time, what we can do, and we should do, is to make dua that, oh Allah, let there be peace. Let peace prevail now in all of these lands. Let those tyrants and the Fir'aun and the Jabbarin and the Mutakabbirin, oh Allah, you remove them, just as how you remove Fir'aun and Haman and Qarun and the rest of them. You have the power, and at this point in time, I will really ask our youth, you need to have sabr, and you need to go through our Islamic and the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ in a very positive way. And this is the only way we can survive, inshallah, positively, and give the positive and the mercy of Islam to the society. Quran is mercy, Allah is mercy, Quran is mercy, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is mercy, and so that is the religion we want to show to this society that is looking at us. And subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursalin, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Jazakallah khair, Abdurrahman. We'll open now with questions. We'll limit, as we said, that this is for 5 minutes, inshallah. So, and we hope that we'll take as many questions within 5 minutes. If not, we'll make meeting at the end, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. You mentioned that in Chicagoland area there is no sheikh that would condone killing or fighting. But then if you put ourselves in the shoes of those people, like in the Middle Eastern countries, I believe there are sheikhs that go on to give the fatwa that it is okay to go ahead and kill people or fight because they've been going through so much oppression and torture and whatnot. Does Islam allow you to do that?
Every society at this point in time, they have their shuyukh in their circumstance, in their environment, and by the way, the shuyukh of the true shuyukh of some of these regions, they tell the Muslim Ummah, don't come to Syria to fight. They tell you don't come to fight because who you're going to fight with? Who you're going to fight at this point in time, there are 6, 7 groups who all are fighting against the current regime. But among themselves, they're fighting each other. So who are you going to fight? So let those scholars in those areas that are being affected, let us, as Maulana Saab said, in India, they have their Majlis al-Ulama, they deal with their issues, that is their local issues, and their ulama are the best to deal with that situation. For us to sit here in Chicago and start giving fatwa left, right, and center, this is dangerous.
No, I guess I'm still not clear. I mean, does it justify to kill somebody because you're going through some kind of torture or oppression? Does Islam allow you to do that, or yes or no?
Obviously, there is killing in Islam in a war. In a war case scenario, you kill and you get killed. In the time of the Sahaba, in the Battle of Siffin and so forth, Battle of Dirka, they were killing on both sides. Killing is not something that you can hold back once war breaks out. But the kind of environment in which war takes place, killing in those environments is a different scenario than for you to sit here and think, I want to go and kill.
I guess what we're trying to understand here is, as the brother here pointed out, the youth here is confused. The fact that, okay, there's so much atrocities that are going on in the Middle Eastern world, in the Muslim world, so they're thinking that, okay, maybe America is behind all this, and that's why they're kind of giving up against America.
No.
That's the understanding the youth is having. They're thinking that, okay, maybe they are against us.
That just does not justify whether America or England. As a matter of fact, there are also theories that our own Muslim countries are behind this.
Right.
So what do? This is not a time when we can sit down here and pass fatwa against America. No. Everybody has their own theory. Everybody has conspiracy theory that America is behind this, Russia is behind this, Saudi is behind this, Egypt is. Every nation, even Muslim nation, have their own. People have theory that their governments are. Some people believe Muslims are behind all of this. So there is no one opinion about that. Yes.
I know it's a very sensitive place to take. It's not easy to do. I appreciate all your courage that you come in here to share with us this sensitive issue. And I don't have a question, but I have a request because I don't want to put anybody in the spot. Before the question, I recall one statement said by the late Prime Minister of Israel. He said, you start paying attention to the Arabs or to the Muslims when you see them standing in line to get in the bus. But as long as you see them jumping to the bus, everybody wants to get first, jumping to the door, don't pay attention to them. So with that, to see one boy after the other being accused and taken to jail, being spent the rest of their life, disturbing the whole community. It's not only disturbing me, I'm even now angry to see that. Our children that we are hoping and we are preparing to make them the future leaders of this community, to see them accused of this. So since we have Dr. Besseddin here, the chairman of the CIOGC, we have Maulana Abaidullah, son of Maulana Abdullah Salim, chairman of that committee. And I think you covered most of the issues. And the audience here understand. So solution starts from home, from the masjid and from home. So in order for us to teach our children and to expect them to behave, we should practice first. I cannot tell my son not to smoke cigarettes because it's harming you when my son see me smoking cigarettes. So just recently, a week ago, we had Eid al-Adha. Community split into two halves, 50-50. This is confusing. I might take that as an adult. Yeah, there is a difference of opinion. Yeah, I spent most of my youth in Palestine, and I understand this. But for our children, it's confusing. And this is a warning for us brothers and sisters. So I'm asking both Dr. Tasruddin, you don't have to answer now. Take the request to the council. Brother Ubaidullah, take it to Maulana Abdul Salim. It's a warning, it's an alarm. Our kids are getting confused. We're going to lose our children. Either they're going to need Islam totally, or they're going to say, we don't need to Islam. Go to your masajid, we want to go and find our way. I am angry to see our children spending the rest of their lives in jails and being tortured and being trapped. Please do something about it. Jazakumullah khair.
Can we have the sister keep it here? Is that okay, Samir? Just the call and the sister.
But please be brief and
maybe I should read.
No.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Abdul Rahman is my neighbor. And, I've attended and lived in Chicago for a long time, and only thing I can say is it's really commendable. All the ulama, they don't preach in any masajid, in any of the lectures, or, teach the youth that they need to behave violently or otherwise. I've never heard anything of any big speakers on, even in internet or in our education facilities. I think what's happening today, every action has a reaction. And what's happening, I am working on a project, educational related project, and I think the problem, a lot of times we are preaching to the same choir, which is important. I mean, you need to talk to your Muslim kids, but my question, the card that I sent earlier to Brother Kasruddin was in relation to public schools and universities. I think there needs to be more understanding of Islam to community in general, not just Muslims. Outside community, our crimes that are happening in our community, if you look at the crime statistics, in general, we don't make crime statistics. I mean, I know we try to put everything down, which is wrong, but we really, if you look at the big picture, Muslims are not part of the crime statistics. The lowest crime rate area in the United States, in Texas, where 90% in one city are Muslims, it's the statistics that is the lowest crime in the entire America. So my request and what I'm trying to say is, are there any projects in relation to approaching the education system? I'm working on something on my own, but is there something you are working on? Because I picked up a book, a public school book, again I'm going back to the famous 9/11 story. If the book says that 9/11 was committed by a Muslim, again we are not we Muslims, but what the politicians, unfortunate politicians, some of the bad foreign policies, and some of the churches have done damage, and now it's in the books. It's in the books, and I've talked to education department here that line needs to be out of the books. Because how would the kid feel sitting in the class? It becomes people ridicule him, becomes mockery, and that's hatred. So we're inbreeding hatred. So anyways, my request to the audience here is if you find a line about 9/11 by a Muslim fundamentalist, I mean, if the crime is a crime, it needs to be condemned, and faith doesn't need to be attached with that. And I am working whatever is in my capacity. And if you see, I'm gathering all the books that have that statement, so we could do something about that in each school district. So, my question is to you. Is there something CIOGC is doing or want to do, and maybe we can work together,
Jazakallah khair for your question. What I've been told is Sheikh Muhammad Qureshi, who is the principal of Islamic Foundation School, is a religious scholar as well. He has already revised the curriculum of the school to address this issue of what's going on, what is affecting the young people, what should be the response, and so we need to see what he has done. All the other schools also need to evaluate and include them in their curriculum, and maybe you can take that and address the public school curriculum also along the same lines. I do not know exactly what he has done, but apparently he has revised the curriculum to address this issue. Please stop.
Okay, thank you.
So now we have the Sheikh Rizwan Ali with us from Center for Ibadah. He's just like Allah, so pleased to see him here and see his father. So I know that I'm giving Sheikh Rizwan only 10 minutes and 5 minutes inshallah for questions.
Assalamu alaikum. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وبعد. I apologize for coming at a prior commitment, so if I repeat something that was already said, I apologize. When 9/11 happened, I was around 15, 16 years old. And it was a very confusing time, right? Because everything that I learned about Islam and Muslims, Islam being peaceful, this was now being challenged. When people were saying that there were Muslim hijackers and all these things. Whether it's true or not, that's beside the point. What is being promoted in the media was that this is what Islam teaches. So at that age, it's a very vulnerable age, right? The teenage years, just going through life at that state is very difficult. But my parents, these are the sources of support that I had to get through these questions and these times of confusion. And they sent me down and they said, listen, whatever's being said, the question that you need to ask yourself, and this is a question I would pose to the youth as well, is that what did the Prophet ﷺ do? What did the Sahaba ﷺ do? And I want to make it very, very clear that whether in times of war or not, the Prophet ﷺ never, ever, ever allowed the targeting and killing of civilians. Whoever does that, whether it's an individual, whether it's a group, whether it's a nation, is violating the principles of Islam and basic human decency. It doesn't take a scholar to tell you that whoever attacks or targets and kills civilians is doing something wrong. This is something that crosses theological boundaries. This is something that crosses fiqh boundaries. This is something, if a person acknowledges that killing humans and civilians is wrong, that makes them human. If they don't acknowledge that, we even have doubt if they're human or not. And we need to be very, very clear about this. So the reminder to myself is that we will hear that Muslims are doing this, Muslims are doing that. But the question is, how are we going to respond? If we are going to blame this international conspiracy, we're wasting our time. Because we don't have control over it. But what do we have control over? How we respond to things. How we are the ambassadors of Islam and Muslims. The Prophet ﷺ, he saw things and heard about things firsthand. And we all know the stories about what happened in Mecca. The Muslims being tortured, the family of Yasir, Sumayya radiallahu anha, Bilal radiallahu anha. But did the Prophet ﷺ ever give the Muslims permission to react? Did he justify? Did he say, go and kill these people? You're justified because they're torturing your brothers and sisters? No, he didn't, ﷺ. But the Prophet ﷺ had hope in the people. And he didn't follow the standard, he set the standard in higher principles, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that's what we have to do as Muslims. Yes, there is a lot of aggression, there is a lot of frustration, but we have to be proactive. And we have to guide our youth. We have to guide each other of what can we do about it in positive ways, in positive solutions. So I just came from Naperville, and I was giving a dance to girls from the ages of 8 to 14 at their girls' club. And I was talking to them about the rights of the parents, and how they should all respect their parents and things like that. But one thing that I would like to remind myself, first and foremost, is that a lot of us, we want to exercise our rights on our children, which is due, which is justified. But we have to also fulfill our responsibilities towards them. One of the responsibilities that we have is that we have to be aware of what's going on in the world. Some people, they say, no, you know what, it's a political issue, I don't want to know about it, I don't care about it, how does that affect me? You know how it affects you? Your children are curious. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us with a sense of curiosity. That's why we ask a lot of questions. So if you don't know what's going on in the world, you don't know what people are saying about Islam, you don't know what people are saying about Muslims, you can't answer your children's questions, what will they do? They'll try to find somebody who can answer their questions. They'll go online, they'll go on YouTube, they'll go on chat rooms, forums, and then they'll find some people, or some people will find them that will play with their minds and will misguide them and mislead them. Also, when we talk to our children, we have to give them positive ways to act out their frustration. What is something positive that they can do in order to improve the image of Muslims while serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and following the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Some of us, and we've seen this, right? In our masajid, in our houses, we talk about different countries, we talk about different affairs, and we talk about world affairs and things of that nature. And we exercise and we charge and energize our children. And then we leave them. So some of our children come, and they say, the older generation, they're a bunch of cowards, all they do is talk. Then they go online, and they find people. You know what's happening in Palestine, what's happening in Syria, what's happening in Egypt? You want to do something about it? Let's do something about it. So what do we teach them? We have to teach them, as Sheikh Allah said, to make dua. We have to teach them that, look, the oppression that's going on to the Muslims in this world right now, it's not something which is new. Read about history. And most of the children growing up here, born and raised here, I'm a social studies teacher too, so the amount of persecution that African Americans dealt with in America is multiplied many, many times compared to what we're going through right now. We need to learn from their example. What did they do? They organized, they came together, they used the power of their voice and their vote. They came together, they were working together, not in pockets, but the organizations put aside even their theological differences, even their fiqhi differences, because al-amru ashaddu min dhalik. These issues are greater than that. I don't care what theological school a person comes from. I don't care what fiqhi school a person comes from. If one of our children ends up in jail because our communities could not work together to address these type of issues, shame on all of us. And that's what we have to learn. So, a reminder, talk to your children. Give them things, positive things that they can do. The Prophet ﷺ and Islam, it made positive contributions wherever it went. Right? There are so many things that we can do here in America to stop injustice. If we don't help speak against the injustice that is taking place against others, no one will come talk against the injustice that is taking place against the Muslims. And we are supposed to not be reactionary, we're supposed to drive this effort. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. You are the greatest nation that has been raised up from mankind. Why? Because you command what is good and you forbid what is evil. Why do you do this? Do you do it for recognition? No, you do it for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a reminder to myself and to everyone else, I have 45 seconds left, so I'll end here, is talk to your children. Find positive ways you can make positive impacts. And the last thing that I'll mention is if anybody comes and approaches your children or yourself with any type of ideas of violent jihad, militarism, and these things, inform the people in power and they'll know how to deal with it, inshallah. Don't assume that this is just a phase and it's going to go away. No, if we leave it, it'll escalate. We need to talk about it, we need to discuss it, and we need to prove from an Islamic basis that this is nothing to do with Islam. Jazakumullah khairan.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair for the comment. One thing we always try to blame ourselves and point to ourselves and try to correct the issue from our side only. The question is that for the community leaders, how come whenever speak to the other people who trap those children, trap them intentionally, just to put them on Channel 7? Why don't we have conference like this with them and tell them, you guys approaching us, approach the people who are weak, just to put them on Channel 7, and that's it. They achieve their purpose. Why do we always, yeah, that's fine, we can take care of our children, but why don't we do the opposite? Talking to the community, the other leader, to the media, to the FBI, to anybody who's trapped those children, and try to put them on Channel 7. And I hope somebody from the community, especially in the castle, can do something like this, because this is going to continue. This is done intentionally. This is done intentionally. They didn't come to a person who's very educated and very, well educated, and they try to trap him. But they come to a person who's a little bit mentally, God knows, and they just want to put it on the news. That's all. So I hope somebody can answer that question.
Yeah, one aspect of it, inshallah, I'll answer, is that, look, we don't have control over who they're going after and things of this nature. But if we educate our kids and say, if one person comes to you and talks to you about these things, and that person raises it up, we'll never see that person in our communities again. Why? Because they'll be exposed. So we need to tell our children that if some people are talking to you about this, speak up. Speak up and expose these people. Don't think that they're going to go away by themselves. Why? It's not like the whole concept of entrapment. Yes, it might exist and things like that, but it's not a one-time thing. If we nip it in the bud from our side, then they won't have so much courage and audacity to prolong it.
We have been in meetings and conversations with the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. The FBI people clearly tell us that this is one of their tactics they use. They do not want people with violent tendencies to actually commit a crime. They want to stop before they commit a crime. So they do run sting operation. That means they put a person behind them to facilitate what they want to do so that they can capture, just like how Dawood was captured with fake bomb and a jeep. And the jeep and fake bombs were provided by an FBI informant. This is what they will do. But they will have to prove in the court whether they actually did entrapment or not, and maybe Brother Mohit can get into that. This is what they will do. And because they want to get those people, before they actually commit a crime, they want to get them out. They are willing to come and talk to us, and we're telling them that we want to make sure that you give us what we need. What we need from them. FBI does not have the capability to do that. What we need from them is, if we identify somebody with violent tendencies, how do we rehabilitate them? How do we talk to them to dissuade them from violent ideology and come back? They do not do that. Maybe somebody else in the Department of Homeland Security is doing it. We have been hearing about this CVE program, countering violent extremism. We're looking into that. If there are any helpful ideas, we will take them. But we need to be careful working with the
take the two questions, Brother Naeem and young Yunus.
Jazakallah khair. I wish we have more young people like the young speak your son, and this is very important. I'd like to thank all of you for this. Actually, this is very important for our community. Families being devastated because of this. Lives affecting all of us. It is so sad. One of the brothers who was arrested, he was like just getting 19 years old, and most of them are 19. What he said, at least what I read, he says dancing is haram, drinking is haram, and we're not killing. We cannot kill anybody who dance or drink, but we tell the kids drinking is haram. All of us say that. All of us. Yeah, everybody in the room. Drinking is haram, drugs are haram, haram dancing is haram. So, but what do? You go and you want to kill? No. You don't kill anybody who dance. Allah will take care of that. So this is important when we teach our kids. When we teach our kids, drinking is haram for us, but somebody thinks this is their business, but if it's a Muslim, we tell them, no, don't do it. Omar bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar. This is our job. Now this is what I thought our community will insist, haram, haram, haram. Now the kids should go, what should I do? But this is one point. The second point is, it's affecting all of us. And some of us, because we go on the masjid, we go to the functions, weddings, meetings, sisters, brothers, and sometimes we see somebody like this. What do? Oh, I don't know, get involved. Now this is amana on you. All of us here, sisters, brothers, audience, if you see somebody and you say anything to the parent, Allah will ask you on the judgment day. You witness something, why did you do anything about this? So it's important, if we don't ourselves get active into this, to protect our families, to protect our kids. This is devastating. So it's important is that us, because I don't think the brothers we can do that, but for us here, listen, brother, if you hear something about a neighbor, a kid in school, you have to get really involved in this, and you have to really follow with the parents, follow with the teacher, with the sheikh, but do something. And then at least you did your part. And this is what's important. I think it's not easy to get all of the cases, but at least we do our best. And this is very good. Inshallah, we do it more. And more specific, precise, like what Sheikh Abdurrahman and Brother Razman and all of you, and Brother Mu'eed next, is to say the point. How did they get them in? How did they trap them? It's important because the parents are all busy. I mean, how people, you know what's in your phone, your son or your daughter's phone? Well, what website you go? No, it's so hard, it's so difficult. May Allah help us all.
Exactly, Brother Naeem, for such a wonderful comment. Before, just like the next question, I'd like to mention that it is, alhamdulillah, when we met here as a West South, we decided to move around addressing these issues at 3 different levels. The first level is just like addressing it here with the community, educating the parents and the elders. It is how that it is what we are saying and doing at home is actually affecting the young and their opinions as well. So this is what this event tonight is the first outcome of it. Actually, even the second level is working with the users. This is the events that we're talking about, inshallah, that we're preparing. And the third level, we're working with the neighboring community. And based on that, it is actually here at the masjid, for example, we are meeting with the neighboring churches here next Tuesday, inshallah. And then we're planning another big event with the council. That is something we're going to be announced in the future, inshallah. But we're working at all these different levels, inshallah.
You said earlier that Muslims are facing persecution 10 times or more of what African American face. In what ways?
Actually, it's the opposite. The opposite is that Muslims, when compared, we're facing a lot of persecutions right now, right? Different places in the world. If you look at history, the amount of persecution that African Americans face here in America is much more than we're facing right now. Let me give you one example. In the early part of the 20th century, right, early 1900s, President was Theodore Roosevelt. right? He decided to invite George Washington Carver to the White House. To the White House, and there were senators that said, and I can't even use the language the senators used. They said because this one African American was invited to the White House, the president, Theodore Roosevelt, has necessitated the killing of thousands of African Americans just for this one action. So this is how the government used to treat them. This is how they used to speak about them. But what did they do? Right? They got organized. They spoke for their rights. As Muslims, we have to be organized. We have to get together, put your differences. This is one thing that we have to, right? Whatever, for the youth and these things, many of us were born and raised here, right? And we don't like drama. That's why we don't like sometimes working in Islamic organizations. But these issues, we have to put all these issues aside and work together because all of our existence depends on it. And just to add to Brother Naeem's point, I want to keep standing, but this one hadith in Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned the Muslim Ummah. And he mentioned that it's like there are people on a boat. And there's two levels on the boat. The people on top have the water. And the people on the bottom want water. So the people from the bottom, they go to the top. And they get water. And they come back down. And a couple of times, two, three times they do this. Then they say, when we're going up for water, we keep causing the people on top inconvenience. So why don't we just dig a hole into the boat and get water directly from the sea? The Prophet ﷺ said, if they are left to do what they want to, everybody will sink. But if they're stopped and they're prevented from doing what they want to, then everybody will survive. So the actions of the few can impact everybody. If we let these actions continue and these happen, so it's our responsibility, as the said, it's our responsibility to be proactive and get involved, or else everybody suffers and it sets us back. Whatever progress that we're trying to make, whether the council and other organizations are trying to make, one action like this puts us back many, many years. That's the point.
And inshallah, that we will continue with Brother Moise Saeed, his attorney from
So I know that the program is getting long, and I'll leave some more time for question and answer. A few things that I wanted to point out, though. First of all, for the youth of the community as well as the parents, I think we're blessed with a resource here that we can all take advantage of. Alhamdulillah, we have CIOGC that does a lot of work for the community as a whole. We have the masjid and alhamdulillah ulama with us to advise us and our children on a path that can be beneficial for all of us. So alhamdulillah, I think that's a blessing that we should all recognize and know that is available for us. And to the youth, I've heard this in many instances where they've been questioned by teachers or children, and this may sometimes plant the roots of what we may call extremism in the early stages. So for the youth, always please involve your parents, please involve the masjid in any instances where even your question about your faith or your question about whether what you're doing is correct. You have resources available for you, you have your parents that will do anything for you. So make sure that you involve them early on. It can be just something very small, and I know the last program that we did at Bolingbrook, a number of questions came up about frame these questions as bullying. So if that's something that you're experiencing, make sure that you reach out to your resources. Make sure you reach out to your parents especially and get them involved. There's absolutely nothing wrong with telling an adult about a situation where you're experiencing some sort of pain, and that can be resolved by our community structure and by on many levels. Your parents, the community at large, through organizations like CIOGC and through the other that can guide you and your parents through a difficult process. The other point, getting more into sort of the legal side, one of the things that attorneys such as myself and other attorneys in the community are really trying to drive the point home is the issue of who you have to speak to and the rights that you have living in this community. And this is very important to understand. And this is what I always try to stress, and I think it's very important. Now, sort of the situation comes about. We are Muslims living in this community. We have connections with individuals that have been arrested. And it's important to know how to protect yourself and your family from a legal perspective. In this country, you will be faced with situations, not everybody in this room, but certainly some people in this room are definitely people in our community, where you will be approached by law enforcement about issues like this. You may not directly be involved, but you may know the family. You may have attended classes with some of these people. You may have taught these people. You may have been students for some of these people. And law enforcement will approach you to understand what your involvement was. And they'll try to approach as many people as possible, men, women, anybody, to understand what their involvement was and what sort of information that they can get. When they come to you, and this is tactics that the FBI uses and law enforcement uses, they'll come to you in situations to say that, we just want some information, we're not looking at you, you're not the target of our investigation, we just need some help, please sit down and talk to us. And they'll come and knock on your door. It's important to know what to do in these situations. It's not, they will also try to approach it in a friendly way and say, let's not get anybody else involved, we'll go inside and sit down, this will be done in a few minutes. It's very important that you exercise your constitutional right, which is still your right in this country. Still to this day, alhamdulillah, it lasts for the remainder of our life and throughout. You do have a right to not speak to them. You have to provide an identification of who you are. That's pretty much it. And if you have a search warrant, you have to allow them into your home to search it for the very specific things. But in the absence of those things, if they come to your home and say they want to speak to you, you don't have to speak to them. And I would advise you not to speak to them. A lot of times what happens if you say something and it slips up, it turns out not to be true, that's actually a felony. And most of the times people get prosecuted because they say something that at the time they didn't know what to say and they didn't remember and they made something up, not out of any ill intention, but that actually is a crime, lying to federation. Your best course of action, no matter what, is to say, I'm not ready to speak to you right now. I would like to have an attorney present while you're questioning me. And you have to be firm about that statement. It can't be an ambiguous statement. Say, maybe I should call my attorney. Is that okay? That's not good enough. It has to be a very firm statement saying, I want to exercise my right to have an attorney present during questioning. I'm cooperative, but I need you to give me your card, and when I have an attorney, I'll give you a call back, and then you can question me when they're present. They may try to get around that in some ways, but you have to be firm and say it a number of times. You may have to say it 3 times before they actually kind of get away from you. So please remember that. That's very, very important. Do not answer any questions when you don't have an attorney present. You can get yourself into a lot of trouble without any intention to get yourself into trouble. And if they do have a search warrant and they come into your home, you have to let them search your home, but you can also call an attorney, and you should at that time and say, look, they presented me with a search warrant, can you come and be with me while they're here? And you do still have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, so if they ask you questions and you don't know what to say during that search period or whatever period, you don't have to say anything. You can just say, I'm exercising my Fifth Amendment right not to speak. That's very important. And a lot of people in our community have gotten into trouble being just witnesses. They didn't want to get into trouble. Law enforcement came and said, hey, it looks bad to your neighbors. Let's just go inside and talk for a little bit. I don't want to cause any problems. It's very important that you recognize that. Get a professional involved, get some professional advice, and protect yourself in that respect. And I think that's one of the points that I would really like to drive home. I know there's a lot of questions about entrapment, and of course I'm not an expert on entrapment. I can talk a little bit about it, but I will have to defer to specific situations. With that, Michelle, we'll open up the floor for any questions, and I'll do my best to answer.
Basically, we have 2 questions or 2 issues right now that we need to address, and we are trying to address the issues. One is the attitude of some of our youths. In one way or the other, they are being misled and committing those sins and crimes. That's one issue. The second issue we have is the perception of the community. As an effect or as an action of some individuals, the entire community is being affected. Now, what we are doing in order to change the perception of the community, how much we are making efforts, concerted efforts, to change the opinion which has been formed since 9/11. I mean, this is very, very important. I mean, as Sheikh have said, that there are terrorists in every community, there are extremists in every community, in every place, in every region. But we are being blamed completely for action of some individuals. Yes, those are wrong actions, they should not have been done. Those are absolutely, they should be condemned, but at the same time, the entire community can be labeled as terrorists. So what is to be done is to try to make some efforts to change the perception. And I know that this is not the forum to talk about that, but if this kind of gathering can start the ball rolling, and if there can be some serious think tank to work on that, like one of the previous people also asked the same thing, that changing of perception is important.
I think whatever the think tank thinks and develops, alhamdulillah, we have the Quran and everything is in there. And I want to give you an example, my favorite example. I've spoken about it. Surah Al-Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qaba'ila lita'arafu. The focus of the word is lita'arafu, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He has created in different tribes and nations and so on, so that what? Not that they fight with each other, not that they backbite with each other, not they offend each other, no. So that they know each other. We as Muslims need to make sure that our neighbors know us, that we have personal relationship with these people. How does that affect? The poll taken by Zorbi a couple of months ago said that only 27% of Americans have a favorable opinion about Muslims. Only 27%. But then, when he subdivided that to those people who knew Muslims personally, then those people had a favorable opinion of about 45%. So there's a big change in the opinion of people when they know us personally. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran also, that we need to know each other, we need to interact with people, so let them know how caring we are, how we are productive citizens of the society. Then the opinion about the Muslim community will change. This is proven by the polls taken in this country.
The question here says, you mentioned about the khilaf between scholars. I am afraid that this could be interpreted as here some Muslims condemn ISIS, ISL, and others agree to that. In this type of khilaf. If you're referring to our panel here, we have come together just for that purpose to say what ISIS is doing is wrong. But there is a bigger issue. The issue that we talked about, the youth are being entrapped and are also going into extreme ideas and ideology. We also address that. So this is not just only for ISIS or ISIL. We are here to address bigger issues that are affecting us. And so I don't think we have a khilaf as such as to what they're doing. My dear beloved student and Sheikh as well, Brother Ridwan, he mentioned that killing of citizens, destroying of property, and the kind of things that are coming out of that, definitely there is no khilaf about those things. There's hadith, Quranic ayah that are clear on those issues. What some khilaf may be in the minds of people, is this true what we are hearing, is this not true? For now, we don't have any opposite side, so we assume what we are hearing is what it is, and based on what we hear, this is what we say that it is wrong. So there's no khilaf about that. The khilaf I'm talking about is fiqhi issues about wudu, salah, and so forth, that these are the fiqhi issues that are there from long ages. Please. Yeah.
My question is towards Dr. Kaiseroti. Now you said that there's 3 cases that happened in Chicago with the youth being,
put under allegations. I mean, I think you kind of answered part of it, but I want to know, like, what exactly is CIUC going to do from here on? How are they going to change their strategy to prevent from future this scenarios from happening in the future?
Well, we really need to understand, and that's why I read up as to what these three young men, what was their thinking. What is the reason? What are the motivations? What drove them to take these actions? We need to, I mean, they are all alleged actions and so on and so forth, but it is, if it was true, that these three individuals, at least Adil Dawood, no, not Adil Dawood, Hamza Khan and Ahmed Tunishi, they were both about to board a flight to go to Syria to join some group and fight. They were, all three of them were extremely bothered by the atrocities being committed against Muslims overseas. Whether it is in Afghanistan, whether it's in Iraq, whether it's in Syria, whether it's in Gaza, they were extremely distraught by those things. We need to really keep that in mind. We adults are also very much bothered by these things, and we do some things, but apparently not enough. So we need to find ways that these young people can join in the effort in a productive way of changing these things. So CIODC, for example, is doing one engagement. Civic engagement is what we are engaged in. That we're doing it at the state level right now as to what are the senators and legislators in Springfield, what are the decisions that they make and how those decisions affect Muslims. We're trying to influence those, change those. The same thing needs to be applied to the federal government also, that their decisions that they make about supplying weapons to Israel to kill Palestinians, to bomb drone attacks and this and that, these are all wrong things. We believe them to be wrong. But we need to find productive ways to address those things. We need to learn a lot from our cousins. The Israeli lobby is so strong. We need to learn some of their tactics as to how we can use those types of tactics, which are not violent, and how we can use those in order to change the foreign policy of America. And we are also telling the federal government the same thing, that look, you want us to stop this extremism? We are doing what is in our power. But what are you going to do? Because your foreign policy is driving these things. What are we going to address those things? We're bringing that up, but we need to bring pressure on them in order to change their policies. And that's not going to happen overnight, but we got to be working at it.
Little worse has been done here in Chicago, so there are 3 cases from Chicago itself.
Well, there were other cases in other cities also, but you know, the 3 cases in Chicago have occurred, and that's why we are taking the action that we are taking. We are impressing upon the community and the parents that these are dangerous territory to walk into. No matter what good intention you have, but if you are breaking the law, then you're going to get into trouble. And this terrorism is such a the whole country is so afraid of terrorism that they will not listen to anything. If anybody is charged about terrorism, then they will, you know, I heard on the radio people saying, why don't we charge them with treason and give big punishments? So we need to understand that our intentions of helping our brothers and sisters overseas are good intentions, but we got to go about them in the right way. That's what we need to do.
The question I have is, most of the time, we hear one side of the stories, how to determine if these are false, via the internet or media. The job of verifying information is not necessarily our individual responsibilities. What I would say is that focus on principles. Okay, focus on principles. What I mean by that is that whoever is violating these principles, whether they're Muslim or not, then those actions must be condemned. Number 2, when it comes to ISIS or ISIL or IS, the death, it's not only Western media that is condemning the actions that they're performing. There have been scholars that have tried to interact with their leadership, especially in the case of Alan Henning, the person, the aid worker from the UK, who was trying to help people in Syria and at a humanitarian level, and they beheaded him. So this is Muslim people giving feedback, and scholars and students of knowledge, saying that their actions show that they don't really have care about Islam and Muslims right now. So don't think, if someone thinks that this is just a biased Western media and everyone's playing into it and things like that, no, this is a different situation. Because they're Muslims, right, who have the same fears and same apprehensions, are condemning them because of first-hand accounts and information about the atrocities that they are committing.
So, alhamdulillah, I think, from a topic standpoint, this is something very needed in this community. I've heard the panel talk about the influence or the age of influence for the teens. One of the things in my experience that I've always seen is whenever there are community issues, the way that is tackled is either the community develops a structured awareness program, and I think you were just touching on that. What efforts are truly being made to have a structured awareness program that can be targeted towards not just the parents who are role models, other community members, or even younger school-age and teenage children? Because consistency, I think, has always reflected success in these type of programs, whether it is drug awareness, whether it is drunk driving awareness or bullying awareness. All of those programs were always successful because of their structured and consistent approach. What's exactly being done from our community to create such a program?
First thing is to raise awareness, right? And because of the immediacy of the situation, I think we've tried to have, this is the second event. I think inshallah CRGC is having one next week. ICM will be having one the week after. So the big focus is first of all to raise awareness, and then you have to use it in a systematic approach, right? And then address the youth, address our neighbors. But this has to be a constant reminder, right? So what happened was that as soon as this event occurred, or we found out about the event, we met here. Association of Western Suburbs, and Sheikh Abdurrahman and I actually put together talking points for a khutbah. And we sent it out to a bunch of different khatibs, and so Sheikh Abdurrahman did a lot of the work. And so the khatibs need to address this from the pulpit. Also what we need to do, and this is one of the focuses that we're going to have at the youth event, is try to get youth leaders and get them, make sure we're all on the same page. And if they deliver the message, whether it's through basketball camps, whether it's through classes that they teach, whether it's through different events and mechanisms, that will be more effective than me coming up here and talking to them, right? But all of these things have to be reinforced, and the same message and platform has to be used to deliver the same message. And alhamdulillah, I'm very happy that this was one of the first steps, that in order to make sure that we're all on the same page. Because sometimes, even getting speakers, we have our doubts, we have our hesitations. Hold on, what's the speaker going to say? That's a problem. So we're dealing with this as best we can. And I would like to say just one thing about CIOGC and even the questions that are being asked. This isn't a, what are you guys doing about it? Right? Sometimes even at CIOGC, before I used to think there was this mystical figure called the CIOGC that will take care of everything. No, it's not. We are the ones that make the organizations up. So what is CIOGC doing about it? Whatever you can help CIOGC do. What are masajid doing about it? Whatever you can help us do. Because mashallah, as we know, most of the people working for the masajid are full-time employees somewhere else. Right? I'm the only full-time employee at ICN or something like that. So, but we're stressed out. So we need help. And I don't know if this other person, inshallah, he can help guide some of these efforts. But this isn't something like, I'm doing this independent thing. No, look, we would love to do everything. But we have extremely limited resources, so whatever we can do together, right, whatever support, moral support, help that you need, inshallah, we're all here willing to work together, inshallah.
One question came in here. I was going to say ISIS estimate is about 31,000 people.
and the media portrays this number of thousands as a major number. Was if all the terrorists combined number 100,000, it would only equal to 0.00006% of the 1.75 billion Muslims worldwide. The majority of Muslims don't think that killing any innocent is just, and we as individuals can work on our direct contacts to present a good image of Islam daily. Well, what do you think of the lack of media push to help correct the image of Islam rather than targeting this incident and that? Now, obviously, we are living at a time where Islam is under microscope everywhere, especially the media. Little things happen and it becomes explosive headlines. We don't control that. We don't have any control in that. Again, I would say if we really want to be proactive in that, then let our Muslim community, our children, stop thinking of becoming doctors and engineers and IT specialists and go into the field of media. The good thing is that you have equal opportunity in many countries to get into the media and you say things. At the same time, there is a lot more that you can do instead of using the internet to just pass on messages, all kind of crazy messages, whatever it is, youth messages, singers, dancers, whatever it is. Use the same media to say something positive about Islam, to spread the message of Islam. This is in our hands. This instrument here is in our hands. How many of Facebook and Twitter is being used by our Muslims? Do our youth, do they channel Islamic things over our age? To tell me to say the truth, I don't have a Facebook. I don't know what Facebook is, except I know it brings trouble. And my kids always, even some shuyukh said, Sheikh, you tweet. I said, what is this tweeting about? You going to the bathroom to take a shower? But that's what some of the things I hear people talk about. Do they need to know that I'm going to the shower to take a bathroom to take a shower? Oh, I have biryani for dinner. I don't know if this is what is good. But what I do know, that it is a media tool that if we cannot get on CNN, we can reach a large group of people with positive Islam. And you youths, take this as a lesson that you can say something positive about this deen using those and get into journalism, and inshallah we can begin to change that. It will not change from their side, it will change from our side.
Assalamu alaikum. Question to Brother Maid. Brother Maid, kids are our children right now, youth. They could be subjected to some question from the teacher, principal, whoever it is, an adult more than their own age. What would be your advice to them and to the parents? The same questions Brother would want to how the kids should answer their own peers because they have that pressure as well.
I mean, from a legal perspective, maybe some of the other shareholders and president can shed some response. But from a legal perspective, obviously, you don't have to answer a question from a person. In all honesty, if the youth are in school and there's a question or inquiries that are making them feel uncomfortable, there's nothing wrong with saying, this is just making me uncomfortable. I don't want to talk about this and engage in this sort of conversation. Maybe in terms of advice on how to deal with it, if you a more specific situation, or maybe share.
There is a hadith that Prophet ﷺ tells us that when there is a kind of fitna, the one who sits down is better than the one who is standing. And the one who is walking is better than the one who is running. And to remain silent than the one who is speaking. So sometimes in a time of fitna, silence might be a better way out. We don't have to talk all the time, or talk or comment on every issue or anything that is said to us. Sometimes silence is what we will have to practice in moments.
Brother Mike, I just want to clarify the question. Legally, the teacher, the advisor, the athletic trainer, so on and so forth, from that perspective, it's understood that the kid should not answer anything, but is there something that parents should do or reach out to those kids or talk to a lawyer? Or, I mean, those are adults.
Yeah, no, I understand. So there's I guess the point really is that there's a person in a position of authority.
Yes.
Really sort of taking that question on. I think a lot of times, being a parent myself, it's a difficult line to draw for children. On the one hand, you want them to respect authority, but on the other hand, you also have to tell them, authorities also have a certain limit. And I know that's difficult for children to understand, but I think a good indicator for them is just that, if it's making them feel very uncomfortable to answer the question, they can say, I'm just not comfortable answering it, but definitely get your parents involved. And then in terms of like their parents, what I would do in this situation is if my son came to me and said, look, my teacher was asking me this question, I told him I wasn't comfortable, I would, as soon as possible, I would try to get in touch with those teachers and authority figures and say, hey, what's this really all about? Why is my child being asked this question? Is he being failure? Are the other children doing this? And what's really the lesson? What are you trying to teach them to do this? And if they can't articulate, which I'm guessing that sort of scenario, they probably can. And escalate to their superiors. That would be my perspective. So it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say it's really, it hasn't reached the level of sort of a legal problem, but it certainly is possible that we can. And if it goes down the line, then there definitely is ways you can get the circuit court involved in all of that.
Just to add to the part about, if your children's classmates talk to them and ask them questions, things like this, well, we all have to learn, right? And whether you're 10 years old, 15 years old, 50 years old, none of us should be ashamed of being Muslim. None of us should be ashamed or embarrassed of being Muslim. It's very important, right? The actions of a few people don't define us as Muslims, and they don't define, what we are. We have nothing to worry about, nothing to be ashamed of. So it's very important for us to be confident as Muslims. Yeah, okay, look, if some people did this or whether it's just what you guys do, no, this is not what I do. These are not what the Prophet Muhammad taught us. Right? So don't be embarrassed to say that. No, the Prophet he was kind, he was compassionate, he was generous, he interacted with Muslims and non-Muslims. So we have to build or instill a sense of confidence in ourselves and in our children. That you're a Muslim, alhamdulillah. Right? It's the greatest ni'mah, wa kafa bihi ni'mah. And the best of ni'mahs is for a person to be confident that he is a Muslim.
I know we are over time, so keep it short, and one thing quickly I want to ask 3 questions before we part. The specific advice, just as one, to the youth in 3 different situations, and part of it has been talked about. A, when they are in school and provoke into a confrontation by name calling, say terrorists and stuff like that. B, if they are in masjid and somebody who they trust come to them and start talking about these concepts. I know you have talked about it, but if you can just reiterate or summarize your responses. And the third thing is, kids think when they are browsing, they can hide themselves behind privacy and stuff like that. But there are lurking dangers. So what are the specific advice in these 3 situations to the youth specifically, inshallah?
First of all, I still have 2 youth here. That's a problem. Right? Number one, when it comes to the students and the provoking, the bullying, a very important tactic and very difficult for you to do, don't resort to what they're doing. Right? Push back with that which is better. Right? I remember one time, it was probably 2005, 2004, I was observing at a school, one of the kids called me Bin Laden. And I was like, what did you say? Right? But when you talk to the principal, I didn't confront the kid directly. When you talk to the principal, you notice that it's just ignorance. It's just pure ignorance. The kid had no idea of what he was saying. So when you bring it up to the administration gets scared now. And they're like, hold on a second. Is it a lawsuit? Are they going to sue us? What's going on? So I would tell the kids, don't push back. Tell the teacher. the teacher doesn't do anything, tell the parents bring it up to the administration. Okay, very simple approach over there. When it comes to the kids, if somebody trusted, domestic, talks to them about anything like this, tell your children that if you're a true friend of this person, then to tell the imam, to tell your parents, so you can deal with the situation. If you don't say anything, and you think you're being a friend, what kind of friend are you going to be if that person ends up in jail for a minimum of 15 years? So we have to tell our children that if you are truly a friend of this person, get him the help that he or she needs. And the third one was?
The internet.
Oh, the internet. Okay. Because that one I used to do that see. Can you talk about that a little bit? The one thing I'll say that the kids have to understand, first of all, this thing is that we shouldn't be going on any of these sites. Whether it be monitored or not, we should not be going on any of these sites. And this is something that we have to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about, and that's the first issue.
Yeah, I would just say, in terms of the internet, as anonymous as you may think you are, there are always ways for that anybody that wants to can figure out who you actually are. Every computer has a MAC address, an IP address, and an ISP provider to actually get on the web. So you can change your name to whatever you want on the internet, or modify the screen name, or I don't know if it's called screen name anymore, but you can modify your username, whatever that may be. You can still be tracked and identified. There really is no way to be anonymous on the internet.
تذكر يوما كنت تعانق دمعة الفكر تناجي الله في صبر وترجو رحمة تسري فعاش القلب إخلاصا وصرت تحوم كالطير تحلق في ثقافات